Okay, we're going to have a little fun for the next couple of videos. I'm going to talk about Christmas traditions. Some of the traditions that we have, I kind of have a little pet peeve with. They kind of irritate me a little bit, and I'll tell you why. The first one we're going to talk about is the passage in Luke 2 where it talks about the manger scene. In the King James Version, it says in verse 7, "And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn." Now, we all have this picture that, Joseph's knocking on the door of every inn. Hey, is there any room in there? No. Sorry, get lost, buddy. Okay, go to the next room. No. Go to the next hotel. No. There's a couple of problems with this situation. But before I go into those, I'm going to talk about the actual word that's used there. In the Greek, it's called katalima. Now, katalima does not mean inn or hotel. And I'm going to show you why. In Mark 14, 13 to 15, it reads, "So he sent his two of his disciples, telling them, 'Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. Say to the owner of the house he enters, the teacher asks, quote, "Where is my guest room, katalima, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?'" Now, someone could say, "Oh, okay, well, it's a guest room of a hotel, whatever, right?" But the next verse actually qualifies this katalima to mean something that's not even close to being a hotel room. He says in verse 15, "He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there." So here you see the guest room is actually a large upper room, upstairs room. We see the same thing in Luke. He talks about that as well. And so when you go back to Luke 2 and you read katalima, which really should be a upper room or guest room of a house. Because what does he say? Back in Mark 14, it says, "Say to the owner of the house." It doesn't say the owner of a hotel. It doesn't say the owner of an inn. It says the owner of a house. And furthermore, the room will be upstairs. So when we go back to Luke 2 again, and we read it, it should say, "And he brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the katalima," the inn. That's what it originally reads in King James Version. Now, it's interesting because I have a lot of discussions with King James only guys. And although this is a minuscule example, I mean, there's many better examples than this one. This is, yet again, another example of the King James getting it wrong. The NIV actually gets it right. It says, it reads this way, "She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for them." Now, they don't emphasize an upper room, but here's the situation. I looked into some archaeological studies on first century homes, and what they were finding in those days in that area in Bethlehem was there was houses, and in the bottom of the houses there is a room for the animals, and the above is for the families to live in. And usually there's a guest room up there. So this fits perfectly with what's being said here. Now, in Mark 14, this could have been a rich guy. He could have have a big house with a huge upper room too as well. But the point is, it's the same word used, and it clearly means a guest room or an upper room of a house. So, going back to the historical background, when I did some research on Bethlehem, the historians are saying that there's no indication of any hotels or inns found in Bethlehem. There may have been, they said, ones on the road going towards Rome and whatnot, but the chances of it are very slim because it was a very small town. Only a couple of hundred people in there. Furthermore, the Bible mentions Joseph as being the line of David, which would have been a royal line. And this is significant, I think, because in Bethlehem, being his hometown, he certainly would have had some sort of honor being placed upon him, especially with his family that lived in Bethlehem, because that's where he originated from. So I think what was happening there was they were going back to his hometown. His family was there, but there was also many, many more families, and many more members of his family that showed up for this census. And he may have showed up late, whatever, but chances are it's probably like elderly there as well that took up the room. So there was no room in the guest room, which makes a lot of sense. The fact that they went downstairs to where the animals would be. And this is because many of them did not want their animals to be left astray, so they would actually have them in their house, in the bottom of their house, because of the robbers and the bandits who would go and steal animals and things like that. So that's something that was suggested as well. So that's my pet peeve. So we see this little manger scene, you know, made of wood and all this other stuff, and you know, and the story goes that Joseph was knocking on the doors of all the inns and looking for a place to stay, but it was actually the house that he was in, and it actually mentions about the house later on when the wise men show up, and that's another pet peeve of mine. We'll talk about that next video. Thanks. Bye.